I went backpacking across Europe solo for 2.5 months, and these are some of the biggest tips I learned along the way. So the first tip, and this one's going to seem so obvious, and I'm sure you've heard it from a million different people already, but it's so important, so I'm just going to stress it even more. Pack light. I thought I packed light. I really tried. I packed again and again, and I packed as light as I thought I could, but there was a lot of stuff that I still needed to shed along the way. Pack as light as you possibly can, and then pack lighter. On that note, I would also say to pack basics and versatile accessories. Pack some neutrals, some colors, but keep it all pretty versatile. The other thing on that note is really try to make sure you know your airline's rules in advance for luggage. I almost had to pay like $100 fee, and I know a lot of other people who did have to pay $100+ fees for their baggage because it's overweight, oversized dimension, whatever it may be. So really look into that in advance. Personally, and I'll get into this later, I wasn't a huge advanced planner when it came to my trip, and I don't think you need to be, but I think there are certain things that you should definitely know in advance. Next up, setting up your credit, debit, whatever card choice of payment that you have in advance. You can, with most credit cards, use the credit card you have abroad, and a lot of them you don't even need to let them know you're going abroad anymore, but a lot of them charge kind of exorbitant fees, so I would look into different cards that don't charge foreign transaction fees. So try to have that set up in advance, just a lot easier. Next up, I would make copies of your social security card, your passport, and your birth certificate if you can. I just had them digitally. I know a lot of people recommended that I have like a physical copy. I just had them digitally. They were on my phone, they were on my email, accessible from different points, but I also had them password locked. So yeah, I would recommend making a PDF of those documents, emailing them to yourself with a password. It's really easy to do that. And then I also had it on my notes app, also locked with a password. Next up is just give yourself some grace. It depends on the type of traveler you are. This is totally on a person-by-person basis. However, for me, at first I tried to just barrel through, do a million different things, and meet new people every single day, and you can do that, and it's great to do that, but I also learned it's great to have chill solo days. And just because you are traveling and you have this great opportunity and you're in this amazing place doesn't mean that you have to lock in every single moment. I think it's hard to forget that, because you want to take advantage of every single moment you have. And if that's really what you need to do for yourself, that's absolutely fine. And there are plenty of people who are super capable of that I met along the way. But it's also fine to give yourself grace. Have a day or a couple hours where you just chill in bed, or have a full solo day where you just walk around and explore the sights on your own. I think it's good to have a balance of those things. So just kind of try to figure out what works best for you. Kind of on that note, and this is also totally based on your preference, but I would leave room open. I wouldn't plan every moment out in advance, because sometimes you'll meet people and you'll want to do things with them, or you'll meet people and they'll tell you about really cool things that you had no idea about before. This kind of leads into my next point, which is, figure out what works best for you in terms of how much you want to plan in advance and how much you want to kind of fly by the seat of your pants. For me, it was more the latter option. I preferred to leave things more open so I could move around to different places, and I really enjoyed that for me. However, it can also be more expensive. If you plan things in advance, generally tickets will be less expensive. This isn't always the case, but it definitely can and is likely to be. That being said, it's likely not going to be an exorbitantly different price, especially if you're traveling around by bus or train, which I did a lot. But if you're traveling around by plane, the price can fluctuate a lot. But on that note, I would also recommend taking trains and buses. I really enjoyed them personally. I mean, they're so much cheaper, especially because you don't have to pay for your baggage. That's going to make a huge difference. But also, I think it's a much more enjoyable experience, even if it's a longer ride. Me personally, I would much rather take a 6-hour train bus ride than a 2-hour plane ride. And that's also just because the agita of going through the airport, you have to get there so far in advance, you have to go through TSA, it's a whole thing. So personally, I just much prefer trains and buses. Also, I would personally recommend taking a carry-on backpack over a carry-on. This is just based on the research I did. I don't have personal experience taking a roll-on carry-on because that's not what I did, but I did find it much easier to have a backpack. Also, please do yourself a favor and get one with a waist strap. I didn't have one with a waist strap. Well, I did, but it fell off immediately, and it was just like having a waist strap makes a world of a difference. So please do that for yourself. I would also say take out about $50 or its equivalent in hard cash wherever you are. You can easily get away with using a card or even Apple Pay a lot of places. However, having hard cash is a good fail-safe, and some places do require it. Sometimes I didn't do this, I'll be honest. If I was in a place for like 2 or 3 days and it was a totally different currency from everywhere else I was, I didn't, and I got away with it. I didn't need it, but I do think it's better safe than sorry to approach it that way. Next up is using Hostelworld to meet people. There is a chat feature on there, and it's great. Whichever city you're in, they will automatically put you into a group chat with other travelers who are coming through that city. Also, they'll put you in a group chat with other people in your hostel if they have one. I met a lot of people this way, so I definitely recommend it. And what's great too is you can see like someone will say, hey, I'm going to dinner, does anyone want to join? And like other people will answer back, and you can see their profiles and kind of catch their vibe in advance. And this kind of goes into my next point, which is like, be careful about it. When I went out to meet a group of people, I always made sure there was like at least one other girl in the group that I was meeting, and it was a fairly substantially sized group usually. So for me, that just made me feel safer. On that note, when you're going out at night, especially if you're a girl, but literally anybody, always be watching your drinks and like keeping the cover. Hold them like this, like from the top. Just better safe than sorry, okay? Next up is know where to go off-season versus peak season. There are a lot of places you would want to go during off-season because things are cheaper, the crowds are lower. There are a lot of places that are much better to go during off-season, but there are also some places that you kind of really do want to be going during peak season, or at least like somewhere in the middle. Like for example, some of the Greek islands, like things shut down over there during off season. But in general, I would say, like try to figure out which places you want to avoid during off season. This one is another kind of like hostel exclusive tip, but I would say cook in your hostels. I loved cooking. It was so nice. Honestly, like some of the best food I had was home cooked meals that either like I cooked or someone I met had cooked, and like we all ate together. And that's the thing, it's like a very communal process. Like you meet people, you talk to people, you can eat together, it's very colloquial, and then also like it's much cheaper, and you kind of want to balance it out. Obviously, when you're traveling to a foreign place, you probably want to try their food, and I definitely think you should, but I think some balance of cooking your own food is also like really, really nice when you're traveling solo abroad. Next up, get travel insurance. I mean, you can do your research and figure out which one you want to get. So I got AXA travel insurance, but do your research and figure out what's going to work best for you. And then the last thing, this is only applicable in certain situations, but if you're living on your own, redirect your mail. It's like super quick to do on USPS. So redirect it to, a family member, a friend, whoever you want to do it to. But I would say make sure you have that set up in advance. Again, if you're already living with people and they can look after your mail, that's no problem. But otherwise, yeah, I would say have your mail redirected. And I think that's all of the major tips I have for you. So if you're doing a solo travel journey, I wish you all the best. It was a wonderful time for me, and I'm sure it will be for you too. And just enjoy it and stay safe.